I'm wondering how we're ever going to be able to figure out a way to have our government function more effectively. So,
What about the other side, the accomplishments? You say you didn't accomplish anything, but I think you did.
there were a few things. I think one of the things I'm actually proudest of is that I encouraged some people to get involved in appointed positions who I think have already made a difference and will continue to make a difference in the future. And that was something that I set out to do. And I continue to believe that there's a tremendous number of really smart, successful, energetic people here who, for whatever reason, have been reluctant to get involved. And once we get them in, they actually, I think, enjoy it and they are able to contribute. So, I think the Finance Committee has enjoyed the benefit of a couple of new people, and I would like to hope that that'll be the start of a trend. And at least one of them then went out and recruited somebody else. So, possibly it could build on it. We could build on it.
What might you have done differently looking back? I mean, one of your big things, for example, is the parking, downtown parking, and how to try to straighten that out a little bit and get some order to chaos.
I only have one regret with regard to parking. We did make significant progress. Last year, we all agreed to try a license plate reader system, and with the help of Remain, who introduced us to a really top-notch consultant, we decided to move ahead. Unfortunately, we did it at the 11th hour, like we frequently do, and we rushed it. And then there was apparently some issues with the software, and either the software itself or the training, and we just didn't give it a fair chance. We weren't unable to give it a fair chance. Before we knew it, it was 4th of July, and it was a choice between not having any effective ticketing system or going back to the old way. And so we went back to the old way and missed, I think, a really tremendous opportunity to demonstrate that technology might be the solution to parking in the future. Now I think we're going to have to, next time around, we're going to have to kind of reintroduce the topic, and we'll be lugging the weight of having failed the last time, even though we really didn't fail. We just didn't give it a fair chance.
Why wasn't it sort of put up for renewal right away?
Well, I think it was probably the wrong system. But that doesn't mean that the right system isn't out there. And I think we'll try it again. I think we're going to catch our breath for a year. But from the sidelines, I may try to push it again in the future, because it's what we need to do.
I've already been chalked this season.
Well, we have to enforce, and people don't realize it. We already have paid parking. It's just that the only people who pay are the people who get tickets under a really sophisticated paid parking system.
Interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, anyway, and it would be a lot more user friendly. It would be more tourist friendly. It would raise a lot more money for the town. And everybody, the way these systems work, everybody gets to park for some period of time for free, and then the meter starts. So if you're only there for half an hour, it's free. You go for an hour, it's a little bit of money. The people you really get the money from are the people who stay for the entire day and who you don't want taking up parking places for the entire day. And if you have the right system, it can track them. The fact that they move their car every 2 hours doesn't matter, because it registers their identification either by their license plate or by a sticker. And then if you move, it doesn't matter. You pay for your 8 hours whether you move it or not. So.
Yeah, we are putting in proposing a new system at the airport, which is the subject of a public hearing next week. And the idea is that we start charging after 2 hours. And the third hour will be, I think, $3. And then it'll be $1 for every hour after that. So if you stay into the third hour, you pay for 3 hours in essence.
So that's to address the people who are there for 12 hours but don't have to pay overnight. Right. Now, will that enable you to reduce the overnight rate?
That's the idea.
Okay, I think that would be a great idea.
So we're going to try that and see how people react to it and how it works from a revenue standpoint.
I think the overnight rate is quite burdensome, particularly compared to the ability to park downtown for virtually nothing or nothing.
I mean, it's not burdensome compared to other places,
right,
and other airports. But and I paid, I don't know, $65 to park overnight in New York City a couple of weeks ago.
Right. But I know you need the money, and if
Yeah.
you can make the money up
Right.
with the
Yeah,
other
so we'll
system,
see.
I think
mean,
that's
it's
great.
an interesting
So-
idea. And the airport staff came up with that, so we'll see what happens. Anyway.
Yeah, that's great. It's nice to have innovative thinking, too. So,
And what sorts of things now do you think, after you've been through this as a selectman for 3 years, what sorts of things do you think really need the focus of the selectmen and the voters?
coming out of town meeting,
Mm-hmm.
I think we all should have learned that we need to find a better way to address zoning issues. And, for many years, people have talked about having a separate town meeting to talk about zoning, and I always resisted that, but I really think that the time may have come. I feel badly for Andrew. I think he does a lot of good work. I think he does have a vision. I feel badly for the planning board. I mean, I'm sympathetic to their argument that, they do have a lot of hearings and people don't show up, and then they come to town meeting knowing nothing, and they need to get educated, and it's impossible to do that. So, I think we need to get to the point, and I say that I'm reasonably well educated, but I was uncomfortable with a lot of those articles that we were talking about. I mean, we have to be able, when we put the map up on the screen, I think all of us need to be able to see it, in the context of the long-term plan, and not just what are we doing here. It's like, how does this fit in to the mosaic of what the island's going to look like in 20 years? And we simply have not told that story. And I think that's the most problematic issue of all, because it's not only about development, it also is about affordable housing, which we talk endlessly about, and you can't really talk about one without the other. And downsizing, I don't think necessarily is the solution to the affordable housing. I think the solution probably is better utilization by encouraging or maybe even incentivizing apartment houses of some kind, or apartment housing. But
And the issue isn't all home ownership.
right,
It's also rental, the availability of rental units.
right.
And when you hear that Nantucket Island Resorts basically subsidizes housing for 75-plus employees who are here year-round, as well as the people who come for the summer, you realize the extent of the problem.
Yeah, it's a tough one. There may not be a solution.
There may not be a solution.
Yeah, sadly.
I think, but there needs to be a means to encourage people to come forward with ideas.
Right.
As the planning board asked for at town meeting.
And I hope they will.
Yeah.
And I hope, I don't know the solution, but there's got to be a better way than to, put up maps on a screen at town meeting and expect people to be able to understand the significance
Or
of it.
even read them.
Or even read them, yeah. And I think there's a trust issue too. I mean, I think a number of the articles, the tone was kind of set right at the beginning with Article 53. And it was pretty clear that the people in that room did not trust the proponents of that article,
Right.
rightly or wrongly. And some of the things that were said at the meeting, I think, supported the fact that there were perhaps good reasons not to trust what was being said.
But on the other hand, I would make the argument that the plan itself wasn't a bad plan.
I think that's probably true. We may have shot ourselves in the foot.
Right.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it was turned down, and it's not clear that there was any one overriding reason. I mean, obviously, some of the neighbors weren't happy, but some of them were.
Yeah.
Some of them were, or at least willing to live with it.
No, I agree with that. I think on the merits, that may have been one of the better zoning articles. So I attribute its failure to the fact that we were unable to find ourselves feeling positive about the people we would be working with going forward on that. So
What else is on your mind about the town and the?
I was a little disappointed in town meeting. There were too many situations where information came forward at the 11th hour. The first night, 53 being one, there were several others there where people literally stood up and said, as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, my clients have agreed to this. And that's just not the way to do business.
That wasn't Article 53. That was on some of the others.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But Article 53, there were some late-breaking developments. The Finance Committee had raised some questions. They responded to the questions. The Finance Committee then at like
Changed.
5:30 on Monday night changed their vote. The Finance Committee changed their vote on 3 or 4 articles at 5:30, which I just think that's really unacceptable. Now, setting aside the merits of the case, they have 6 months to go through the process. The information ought to be available before 5 o'clock in the afternoon on the day town meeting starts. And/or, they should be less susceptible to last-minute arm twisting by proponents of articles, and there was a lot of that. So
Again, back to my fundamental question, does this form of government that we have work?
I don't believe so, no. I think the other thing that was troubling, as it frequently is, was I think last night there were about 300 people in attendance, and there were at least two, if not more, pretty important articles that I think probably would have been decided the other way had they been on the agenda the first night, or even the second night. And so, there's already been a number of sidebar discussions about maybe the selectmen should exercise their authority to arrange the agenda of the town meeting and just say, these are the most important articles, we're going to put all of them up front to avoid that happening, which I think would be a good idea. Now, of course, different people can disagree about what's important and what's not.
Exactly.
But I think this town meeting, it was pretty clear which ones were going to get the most attention.
Were you surprised that the school and the hospital
I was totally shocked.
didn't get
Yeah.
didn't get called?
No, I was totally shocked. I was happy about the fact that the fire station, which did get called, only had a little bit of, not even opposition,
Right.
of concern, because I think that's long overdue, and of course, because that's another area that I hope to focus on was trying to clean up some of these issues that we've been lugging around for 10 or 15 years. That being one of the prime examples.
Right.
There's no doubt that our inability to decide the future of the fire station cost us the ability to sell that property to the Stop and Shop for probably 3 or 4 or 5 times what we're going to get for it now.
Right.
You drive by now, you can see, now it faces the back side of the Stop and Shop. At one point, the Stop and Shop, I think, was willing to pay us north of $5 million for basically what would have been a parking lot for
That
them.
would have paid half the cost of the new fire station.
Exactly, yeah.
As you wind down here, what particular, I guess words of advice is probably a good phrase. What words of advice would you give your colleagues and your successor coming in? How would you like to see them change the way they operate? And
I wish I could give you an intelligent answer to that question, but I really, there's no specific thing I could suggest that I think would really make a big difference. I feel sad that that's the case. I pay attention, do your homework, advocate strongly for your positions, but I don't think any of that is going to change, the kind of the fundamental shortcomings that I think you and I see in the form of government. One thing that another thing I was hoping to see, and I encouraged it, was I would like to see the town manager participate more in the dialogue at our meetings. I expressed that to her. I think she would be willing to do it. I expressed that to the chairman. Nobody has ever said that that's a bad idea, but I think,
but it doesn't happen.
like a lot of things, there's so much inertia that people are so used to doing things that the way they do them that it never happens. You tune into the school committee meetings and you see how much Michael Kozort participates, and Libby has what, 25 years of experience? She knows a lot.
I'd like to think that the same thing happens with the airport commission, the airport at our meetings.
Yeah, so there are times when we're floundering, expressing opinions without the basis of any knowledge or experience, and I'm sitting there thinking, I think Libby knows the answer to that. And
Why don't you ask her?
Well, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And sometimes she can't take it anymore, and she says, excuse me for interrupting, here's the fact. Now, I don't think she should have to excuse herself to participate in the discussion. I think she should be treated as one of 6 people who are have something to contrite to that meeting. So that would be something, that wouldn't
Well,
be...
that's a very
Yeah.
that's a very well stated
And,
wish, if you will, that they get her to participate more.
And again, I can't fault anybody for not doing it. There I was there for 3 years. I did raise the issue a few times, but then you get distracted by other issues, and like you really have, well, actually, another piece of advice is you really have to pick your shots, focus on one or two things, and then just relentlessly pursue them until you either fail or until you get them done, which is what we had to do with the parking. I mean,
Right.
the National Grid lot was 6 months or 12 months of just absolutely harassing everybody constantly until they addressed it. But I don't know, getting back to Libby's participation, trying it for one or two meetings, I mean, what would be the big deal? But
Well, if it works, it works, and if it
Yeah,
doesn't work,
yeah.
you go back to the way it was.
and then having said that, people can say, well, gee, you were a selectman for 3 years, why didn't you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know why I didn't do it. I wasn't relentless enough.
It's
So.
also partly the question of who's in charge of the meeting,
Right.
and whether that's encouraged or not by the person presiding over the meeting.
But I honestly don't think the chairman would object. Conceptually, I don't think the chairman would object to it either. I just think the chairman's used to doing it a certain way, Libby's used to her role as a certain way, and you just have to knock some heads together to get them to change. But
No. Thank you, Bruce.
thank you.
And
Nice
thank
to
you
be
for-
here.
Thank you for your service, if you will.
You're very welcome.
To the town of Nantucket. And
People ask me all the time if I'm happy I did. I am absolutely not sorry I ran and served for 3 years. I wish more people would do it, at least for one term, because it really changes your perspective.
But you're also going to be glad to have your Wednesday night back.
I am.
Wednesday nights
I
back.
am. And I may make a guest appearance once in a while on selected issues. So
Bruce Miller, thank you very much.
thank you, Dan. Nice to be here.